So markets continue crashing today as there's major pullbacks in stocks and crypto. I want to give you guys the latest and let's jump right in. So this is the headlines. Stocks fall for fourth straight session on AI bubble fears. And this is the lead up into NVIDIA earnings. So we'll see if NVIDIA can stop the bleeding. I wouldn't hold my breath though, but we'll find out. This is also worldwide. So news today here in Asia, Asia Pacific markets track Wall Street declines as tech-led sell-off deepens. And we also got some other news that the big players are jumping out entirely of NVIDIA. Peter Thiel, if you guys know who that is, that's the money bags behind J.D. Vance and many Republican politicians / candidates. They're selling all of their NVIDIA stake, right? You can see it right there. Also with Peter Thiel, you may or may not know, he was one of the early players that was like telling all his billionaire buddies, you got to get out of Silicon Valley Bank. And that basically caused a bank run. And so he's jumping out of NVIDIA. And I'll just say this, if he's jumping out, it's not a good sign. You know this already. SoftBank's like, you know what? We're selling off all of ours. That was the big hedge fund in Japan. And we're going to see if anyone else follows. I mean, you also have Michael Burry made a big short bet against NVIDIA, basically betting on the stock going down. And then you get these kind of headlines. NVIDIA stock fell after Peter Thiel dumped his stake. Why everyone is selling. Well, I'll tell you, there's a circular finance concern in the market. So basically what it boils down to is you got companies pumping up each other. And it's crazy when multiple news organizations are addressing it. So this is CNBC. Let me read it and you'll see exactly what it says. CNBC Daily Open, okay. The flow of money in AI appears one way at this point. Which way is that? Listen to this. This is interesting. At this point, it seems as if a big proportion of AI news can be summarized as, quote, company X invests in company Y, and company Y will buy things from company X. So another way to say it is circular financing. Make sure you understand this because this particular point will answer sort of why this thing is a massive bubble, at least one of the reasons. Again, company X invests in company Y, and company Y will buy things from company X. You actually got charts of this stuff. You can see it right there. And there's been multiple charts coming out from either Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal or whatever. But the basic gist of it, all these companies are pumping up each other, be it OpenAI, Microsoft, NVIDIA, CoreWeave, AMD, Oracle, Anthropic. Now, look at this headline from the Wall Street Journal. This actually perfectly illustrates what CNBC was just talking about. Listen, NVIDIA and Microsoft pour $15 billion into Anthropic for a new AI alliance. You say, okay, that's great. Cheers for Anthropic. You're getting money from NVIDIA and Microsoft. Okay, so what's the deal? Anthropic commits to purchase $30 billion Microsoft Cloud Computing business Azure. Do you guys see how this works, right? So Microsoft's, okay, I'm going to give you a bunch of money to Anthropic. Anthropic's like, oh, great, I got all this money. I'm going to buy a bunch of Microsoft stuff. And it's like, okay, so is there any new money generated here? Do you guys see how this game is played? And then, when you got the sort of circular financing going, do you know who the king of that is? Mr. Elon Musk, of course. And he's like, hey, money? Did someone say money? And he's showing up at the parties. And so if you followed my last video, you'll know that Trump is meeting with Saudi Crown Prince MBS. And Musk is like, hey, I'll put on that tux whenever you want. I need some money. And what is Musk doing? He is raising money for his XAI company. All this stuff, right? This whole game is based on debt. Everyone's out to raise money, right? Borrow money, do whatever they can to get in this AI race because everybody thinks that if you invest in a whole bunch of data centers, right? You start pumping up and building all these data centers, that sometime in the future, you're going to break even. And I'll repeat, the bet is sometime in the future, you're going to break even because they're not making money right now because it takes a lot of investment to buy all those NVIDIA chips, build those data centers, et cetera. And then you're betting down the road that all these people are going to basically sign up for your monthly service for your whatever AI service that you're going to provide. Now, there's one big problem, right? AI is all designed to replace you, the worker. So if they build all these things to replace you, the worker, who's going to buy all their AI services? That's the bet. And so they're thinking, okay, well, I don't care so much about workers. It's going to be, Google's going to buy our data center services and Microsoft is and Facebook, Meta. It's only like these big companies. And so that's why this one chart becomes really important. And if I know you guys are probably scratching your head like, how is this like possible? Well, if the media is in on it and Wall Street's in on it, then yeah, you keep perpetuating this bubble. And if everyone can keep borrowing to infinity, because that's the idea, that's why Trump keeps talking about lowering interest rates and printing the money, get the in business investment going, then it's like, then I guess it'll work, right? And I make jokes, but my point of view on this stuff is, in a consumer-based economy, I just don't think this stuff is sustainable. And then ultimately, you have to prove to everyone that you are indeed making money, because hey, I could be totally wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe Microsoft and maybe, Elon Musk, when they build all these data centers, maybe you're all going to spend $100 a month on, these things, even though you don't have a job, but you're just like, you know what, I'm going to have my robot girlfriends and my robot buddies. And that's Musk's plan. That's what he keeps talking about. So look at this. This is what we're looking at today. NVIDIA results and delayed job data set up critical tests for Wall Street. So what we're going to look for tomorrow, and this is our markets are kind of laughable at this point, is we're looking, okay, NVIDIA, can you prove to us that you're growing 50% a year? Because that's basically the bet on Wall Street. They're going to keep growing their profits and the revenue 50% a year forever, right? As if you can build endless data centers. And I guess if you watch the movie The Matrix, maybe that's the plan. Eventually, we're all going to be batteries and everything's going to be data centers. That's the plan. But there's that pesky, data about unemployment and jobs data. So we'll see what that ends up being. The Trump people, they want to hide that stuff for you as much as they can. And again, guys, I'm just telling you like what it is. This whole plan is to replace everyone. So it doesn't make any sense. NVIDIA earnings run into a market suddenly afraid of AI spending. Well, maybe. And that's what Trump's going to try to do, is convince you that AI is the future and that he's making tons of cash. And we're going to bring all this, money from abroad in, because it's just a massive bubble. I don't know how else to say it. I show you all this stuff, and it's hard to go through this stuff, because to me it's obviously a massive bubble. But you gotta repeat it over and over again, because for some people, this is how the game is played. Basically, it's musical chairs. Okay, yes, you can totally make money in it as long as you get out before the music stops. That's basically what it boils down to. And for anyone with, any sort of critical thinking skills or intelligence, you can see it's clearly a bubble. But you can also see it is true, guys. You can make money as long as you get out before the music stops. Look at what Trump says today. He says, "Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that we are taking our military cooperation to even greater heights by formally designating Saudi Arabia as a major non-NATO ally." So I guess we're buddies with Saudi Arabia now. That's what they say. At the black tie event, Bessent then is saying this. He says, "If you are another country in the world, what do you look to for the U.S. for?" Okay, what's the U.S. power? That's what he says here. What are sources of American power? That's what we saw on display here today on the Saudi Arabian visit, right? They're going to buy F-35s, right? Jets. They're going to buy chips, and they're promising $1 trillion of investment. And I'm going to get to that in a minute here, because keep that number in mind. And then you're going to get Miller coming out, because it's basically these Miller and Bessent and Trump, they're all part of this sort of pumping up game that we're all going to be rich someday or whatever. Miller then says, when President Trump was in the Middle East recently in Saudi Arabia, he brought $600 billion investment home today, right? $600 billion. Wow. Today, the kingdom raised that amount to $1 trillion. Wow. They just got this money out of thin air. That means more than anything else, jobs for Americans. Now, they're going to pump up these numbers because this is real. If you do indeed build a data center, there'll be a whole bunch of jobs building the data center. Maybe that's a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 6 months, whatever. After the data center is finished, all those jobs will evaporate, and there'll just be a few people to run the data center. That's the reality. So they're going to pump up this stuff. Now, whether or not that money's real remains in question, because if you read the business news, this is Bloomberg back in March. They were talking about MBS and Saudi and their basically sovereign wealth fund. They were saying, like, I'll read it. It says, the fund aims to increase annual deployment to up to 70 billion, right? So they're basically saying we can afford 70 billion a year, give or take. And so then when Trumpers and the Saudis are saying, oh yeah, we're totally going to invest 600 billion into the USA, the math doesn't quite add up. Like, you can only afford 70 billion a year. So like, are you going to invest all your money into USA? Is that the plan? And then where are you getting this trillion? Like, you don't even have that much. And it was widely reported before, and I've talked about many times on the channel, that MBS is out trying to raise money the same way Elon Musk is out trying to raise money, and everyone's out begging for money. And it's like, where is this money coming from? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. I'm just showing you guys right here. So again, this was on Bloomberg. It was widely reported. If you want to talk about GDPs, right? Saudi Arabia can put the GDP anywhere from $1 trillion to $2 trillion. So again, do you think they're going to invest like basically their entire GDP into the USA? It doesn't make sense. That's the point. That's why we look at the number of stuff. It doesn't make sense. And for those of you guys who've seen these kind of movies, say The Big Short, you'll know this kind of thing is like when people think that things are going to grow to infinity, it just doesn't work that way. Eventually, the checks run out. Eventually, the bubble pops. I also recommend this movie. It's called Default. It's a Korean movie also about a financial crisis. Please check it out. Now, I want to show you something that may or may not be also pumped up, but at least has more realistic numbers. So while Trump is bragging about $1 trillion and we're going to sell F-35s or whatever, Korea, actually where I live, is trying to make a deal with the UAE, and they're saying like 15 billion. This is at least a plausible deal, right? Is it going to go through? Who knows? But I just want to show you the difference. Like Trump just like, yeah, I'm doing trillions and trillions, and no one's ever done deals like that before. Right, because just no one has that much money. I'm just telling you the truth, because like for example, if the Saudis said, hey, we got 70 billion a year to spend, and we're going to spend, say, 15 on jets from Korea, I actually would believe that. That's actually a believable number. And that's why I'm showing you this, just to give you some frame of reference, because for people, if you don't follow this stuff, the numbers that Trump pulls out of thin air, like it has no frame of reference. So it's like, I don't know what the budget is. I don't know what GDP is. I don't know how much money they have. But when someone's promising you all this money they don't have, it's pretty easy to call out. And then you got this. Home Depot cuts outlook as home improvements slow down. And this is the question I pose to you. If people can't even afford to fix their houses, do you think they can afford to buy all this AI stuff and all this fancy AI services from Elon Musk? Do you think that is a likely scenario? My answer is probably not, because this essentially shows you what the consumers are thinking. And there's a big disconnect to say what Trump says or Elon Musk says, all the tech bros say, because they all hang out with their billionaire buddies, opposed to just regular people on the ground. That's why you look at company earnings. So look what Home Depot says. They say, Home Depot reported lower third quarter profit and trimmed its full year outlook as an extended downturn in home improvement activity shows little signs of ending. So they're basically saying, man, our customers going into the future, they're just not buying stuff to fix up their homes. The money's not there. And then when you read like the reasons why, Home Depot tells you, it says broad economic uncertainty, right? They're worried about the future. Higher interest rates and a stagnant housing market are causing homeowners to delay remodeling projects and cut their spending on kitchen upgrades, bath remodels, and roof replacements. They're literally saying like people are cutting their spending. You can see it right here. And the argument they're going to make is, well, and this would be Elon Musk would say, well, people don't need to improve their homes. They just need to buy more AI. So trust me, bro, lend me all this money. I'm going to build data centers, and I promise you the customers are going to show up. Maybe. I disagree, but maybe. This is from Home Depot. They also say, our customers tell us that they remain on the sidelines due to uncertainty and perhaps the hesitation to make larger financial commitments amid an uncertain economic environment. And when you dig into like, say one of these AI promises, what they do, this is Oracle. I guess they're already underwater. They made some sort of deal with OpenAI, and it says Oracle's already underwater, and it's astonishing $300 billion OpenAI deal. Basically, they're looking at the stock. They've made some sort of deal with OpenAI, all these great promises of the future. The stock's declining. You can actually look at this. Multiple companies are actually upping their investment into chips and data centers, stuff like that. But just because you build the data centers doesn't mean you're necessarily guaranteed to make money. If you look at their projections, and this is Oracle, I just want to give you just a general idea of like how this could play out. Basically, the light blue, this is Oracle, the light blue bars keep going up, and that's their net debt. So their net debt keeps going up, their cash levels keeps going down, and even their free cash flow is going down. And theoretically, they're going to make money in 2030 or something like that. Like this whole thing is based on, again, we're putting all this money into the data centers, and supposedly it's going to make a whole bunch of money. And then when you look at the communication from the White House, they're putting a bunch of thumbs up and pictures because Saudi's like, yeah, we're going to buy chips and data centers and we're going to be so rich. Yeah. And then Trump's like, okay, I'm such a great deal person. I'm going to take that $600 billion that Saudi's promised, even though they can only afford $70 billion a year, and I'm going to pump that to $1 trillion. I don't know where the money's going to come from, but they promised it to me. And then I guess we're all going to be rich from all this AI pumping. This is from Scott Bessent. Breaking, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent predicts Q1 and Q2 2026 will be amazing for working and middle-class Americans. Quote, we've brought inflation down and real income growth. We will see this from all this investment, American flag, American flag. And so long story short, all this thing is right now is a big promise that we're all going to make money from AI. And then when you look at what the AI companies are doing, it's circular financing, or you got the big players getting out, selling off their NVIDIA stake, or you got people like Elon Musk out begging and raising money all the time, or trying to get those government contracts. This is what this whole game is all about. So this is why you're seeing markets pull back. If NVIDIA can indeed, make the case that they're making a whole bunch of money, they're going to make a bunch of money in the future, theoretically, this thing could keep going. But even if NVIDIA makes money, doesn't necessarily mean that the regular people will benefit. And so this is sort of why I make these videos every day, to hopefully explain everything to you. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this stuff. I do appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video.